So she says she's a Harry Styles fan, but she doesn't know the lyrics word by word or line by line to the unreleased yet massively underrated Harry Styles song called Already Home. Like, that's some fake fan behavior.
Is such a dumb thing to say, because it makes no fucking sense. As a longtime fangirl, I don't even want to think about how much content I've consumed. And yet, when I scroll through the fandom, some platforms are definitely worse than others. I'll every once in a while see this notion of fake fan. Either someone commenting that someone is a fake fan, sometimes as a joke, but also sometimes it doesn't seem like it. And then I'll also see people online kind of defending themselves and be like, can we normalize being a fan even though you don't do this and this and this? And since I'm on this fandom pop culture ranting phase here on YouTube, I thought, you know what? I have thoughts and now I'm here making a video. In this video, I'm gonna be reflecting on the real hard-hitting questions in our society. Like, what does being a fake fan even mean? Who decides the rules of fanness? Why does being the most real or least fake fan even matter? In what ways this real fan, fake fan gatekeeping is actually hurting the fandom? What, in my opinion, actually qualifies a real fan? And what I think should qualify as a fake fan. So if you're into that, this video is for you. Also, we are so very close to monetization. I know I keep saying it, but I just keep getting closer and closer. So if you like this video and want to support a small content creator like me who's been doing this for like years at this point, subscribe, like, comment, share it with a friend, share it with a fan, and let me know your thoughts on this whole topic down in the comments. I'm so curious. I try to respond to every single comment, so even if you just want to like drop an emoji, I'll respond with an emoji. If you're like, oh my god, I can't believe Bella isn't making money, I wish I could do something, then I'll also leave a link down in the description to my Ko-fi where you can donate a coffee if you feel like you want to do that. No pressure, but you can. Anyways, let's get into it. So online, we're throwing around this term of fake fan. What does being a fake fan even mean? Logically, in order to have a definition of a fake fan, you would need the definition of a real fan, because a fake fan is what a real fan is not. So off the top of my head, I have 4 definitions that I've seen floating around online, and I've also decided that I think that they're all dumb and shouldn't be used to classify realness or fakeness of fans. So let's go over them, shall we? First of all, there's this notion that a real fan knows everything about the artist, and that a fake fan does not know enough. By this definition, you're a real fan if you know the birthdays, all the trivia, the fandom lore, and have watched all the interviews and blah 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 blah. But trivia knowledge and remembering things does not mean that you're passionate about it or love it. Like, I can remember a lot of things that I definitely did not like and definitely did not love. And also, we as humans can only remember so much. So this trivia, which legitimately comes from trivial, something of little value of importance, this type of knowledge is just not prioritized by our brains a lot, because we have better things to remember, you know? Another one I've seen floating around a lot is this notion that a real fan loves and supports everything that the artist does, and that a fake fan does not. This is definitely one of the more prominent ones I've seen online, where I've seen people posting and be like,
can we normalize me being a Louis fan even if I don't like the first album?
Of course we can't. Like, yes, of course, some people might love an artist their entire life or love a song their entire life, but that doesn't mean that they're more real fans than others.
Also, sometimes artists behave in shitty ways and fuck up. I think it's totally fair to be like, yeah, this was not great. You're allowed to have your own opinions. Doesn't mean that you have to agree with everything that the artist does, or else your fan label will be revoked or something. Like, no, you don't have to be this blind follower of the artist to be classified as a fan. And you can support the artist in many other ways. Do you know what I mean?
And like, I'll be the first to say it. One Direction, first 2 albums, except for a couple of songs for nostalgic value, I don't care. I started liking the albums once the boys started writing their own songs. That's what I like. I like the story. I like the songwriting. I like what came out of them writing together. The first couple of albums, not my thing. But I still classify myself as a fan. As should you if you have similar opinions. Next, this other thing that I've seen floating around is that if you've been here for a while in the fandom, you're a more real fan. And it's often seen in posts like,
I was here before so-and-so got famous.
Objectively, yes, that's a really nice flex. Sometimes, depending on the context, it gives off this vibe that like you're hierarchically more important, which is just wrong. Because like, just because you've been here for a while doesn't mean that your experience as a fan is more or less real than newer fans. Do you know what I mean? You being in the fandom for a long time just means that you have more knowledge and that you're a good person to ask if new fans want information about older history of the fandom. And this definition in itself is so unfair because let's say people are like, I was here when One Direction was on X Factor. That's really cool objectively, but also other people were maybe like 10 years old or younger. So like they legitimately couldn't even have participated at the time. So basing your value or realness or fakeness on something that is literally not something you can change, like it doesn't make sense. The fourth definition I think is the one that is often perpetuated by labels and the marketing teams because it's this notion that real fans spend money on the artist. Many problems with this one. Just because a fan can't afford to spend money on the artist doesn't invalidate any of the other ways they might support the artist. I could talk about this one forever, but I feel like I just want to move on. You get the point. Point is, if we're online in the like sphere of fandom and the culture of fandoms don't even have good definitions for real fans, then why are we using the concept of fake fan in the way that we are? Because the way that it's used online does not make sense. But even so, who is deciding and coming up with all these like things that you have to be a real or fake fan? Is there a fandom court? Is there a rule book? No, because a fandom is a constantly evolving and like super complex network of fans communicating with fans centered around an artist that they love and respect. There is no one who's like explicitly setting these expectations. Maybe a little bit like the marketing teams, but like in general, I was like, where is this coming from? And then I had a thought. What if this real fan versus fake fan gatekeeping comes from personal insecurity? Hear me out. I feel like maybe fans themselves set these expectations, not necessarily for others, but for themselves. Because that's what they themselves feel like they need to do to be a real or a good fan. And then it just kind of keeps reinforcing itself. And this is happening with like a lot of different expectations within fandoms, especially with the internet. We love sharing highlights of our life. So if you get a new piece of merch or get something in the mail, you share it because you're like, oh my God, this is fun. I got this thing. And then people are like, oh my God, she has this thing. I don't have this thing. I probably need this thing. It's just perpetuating itself based on who they perceive as real fans. When in reality, these people online might have similar thoughts about someone else. And it's so dumb because it can take these really good things that are coming out of fandoms, like, I don't know, fan art. People make fan art because they love the artist, because they want to interact with the artist, they want to interact with the fandom, they want to create something for other fans. But then because of this like toxic undercurrent, sometimes some people might be like, oh my God, other people are making fan art. Should I be making fan art too? Like, am I not good enough of a fan if I don't make fan art as well? And it's like taking this thing that is supposed to be for enjoyment and then like turning it into this like little toxic thing. This hierarchical nature of fandom is not supposed to be there. It's supposed to be a flat hierarchy of just enjoyment and for fans to connect with each other centered around the artist. So let's say we're chasing this self-regulating approval of whether we're a real fan or not. But why? So why does being the most real or least fake fan even matter? Spoiler, it doesn't. But here's why it might feel like it does. From a psychological point of view, you could explain it with the social identity theory. This theory talks about how people often define their sense of self and their identity based on the groups of people that they belong to. And fandoms are no exception. By feeling like you're a real fan or a good enough fan or not a fake fan, fans feel like they belong to this fandom group more, or feel like they deserve to belong to this group, which further solidifies their identity and their sense of self, and also their self-worth to an extent. The next reason I call the rom-com recognition, and I think it's perpetuated by two things. First of all, the marketing from the labels. Remember back in the One Direction early days? These boys were marketed to these teenage girls as their dream guys. It was this notion of, oh, they could be your boyfriend, they could fall in love with you, blah, 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 blah. At the same time, we have movies on Disney Channel, like, have you seen Starstruck? That is legitimately about a like teenage heartthrob falling in love with the fangirl. And then add the extra layer of YN fanfiction that was like so booming at the time as well. Your brain is still developing when you're a teenager. Having these things just like surrounding you at all times, I think definitely impacts your psychology. psychology, especially when it comes to the parasocial relationship with artists. So subconsciously, a lot of fans might believe that if they prove that they're a real fan, if they just do enough, the artist will notice them, the artist will love them, the artist will validate their loyalty and interact with them and do all these things. And that is the goal for being a fandom. That is like the reward for being a good fan. When in reality, that's not really realistic. Like, yes, you can meet an artist. Yes, you can be recognized by an artist. Yes, you can be retweeted or shared by the artist. And there's nothing wrong with that, because like that's a really great way for artists to connect with the fandoms, especially online. And I think like there's nothing wrong with that. But seeing this recognition as the trophy or the proof that you've done good enough as a fan, I think that's the toxic bit that I think perpetuates this hierarchy and I think is missing the point of a fandom. And in my opinion, this gatekeeping or this like hierarchical nature is actually just harming fandoms more than anything. And here's why. In my opinion, if you enjoy something, wouldn't you want more people to enjoy it too? These made up rules or expectations that have infiltrated the fandom is actually hurting the fandoms, and I've identified in 3 ways in which they do that. First of all, it limits growth and weakens the fan. If new fans hesitate to join the fandom or feel discouraged from participating in the fandom, whether it's because they feel like they don't know enough or because they feel like they haven't been here long enough, then that means less engagement, less excitement, and ultimately less public support for the artist. And a fandom is a community, so the more people who participate in the community, the stronger the fandom is. Secondly, it creates this exhausting hierarchy. It makes it feel like there is this invisible competition where fans feel like they have to somehow prove themselves, and it's just not beneficial to anyone. Third, it can make these fandoms feel toxic, even to longtime fans. And when a community starts to feel toxic, people may want to leave entirely. Because this pressure to keep up with every single release, every concert, every piece of news about the artist, every discourse online can get so exhausting. And that's when we see fans being like, oh, I'm gonna take a break for a couple weeks. I need to breathe. And that is so sad. But taking a break in that way for your mental health does not and should not make you less of a fan or less real of a fan. Because in my opinion, here's what I think should qualify you as a fan. Side note, I love how he is just like melted throughout the entire video. You're so sweet. Anyways, as someone who legitimately wrote their master thesis on the One Direction fandom, you might expect like a certain complicated definition taking into account multiple point of views with different sources and blah 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 blah. But what if I told you that it's way more simple than that? First of all, I think we should just like forget this whole spectrum of how real of a fan you can be and just classify you as a fan or not a fan. This fake fan shit, the way that it's defined online, is dumb. So either you're a fan or you're not. And in my opinion, you're a fan if you intentionally interact with or find enjoyment in the fandom. Doesn't matter how much, doesn't matter in what way, it should be that simple. In my opinion, if you simply just listen to the music and don't interact with the fandom, then you're a listener or a consumer of the music. The beautiful thing about fandom specifically is this fan-to-fan connection. And so in order to be a fan, I think in some way you have to interact with the fandom. That's what takes you from a listener or consumer to a fan, is the intentional participation in fandom. Whether you're just consuming or whether you're also producing for the fandom. And it doesn't matter how much, how little, as long as you somehow engage and respect and enjoy the fandom and respect and enjoy the artist that the fandom is created around. But now you might be thinking, Bella, does that mean that this entire concept of fake fan is a myth? Well, yes and no. Hear me out. Is the concept of being a fake fan a myth? If we go by the definitions that I went over in the start of the video, then yes. But in my opinion, fake fan is not a myth if the definition is changed to be if someone is lying about being a fan. None of this, oh, you don't know the lyrics to this song, or blah, 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 or you don't like all of it. No, if you are lying about being a fan, then yes, you are a fake fan. It should really be that simple. Like, for example, you're on a date and someone is like, oh my god, do you like the Arctic monkeys, and you're like, it would be awkward if I said no, I don't want to go into why I don't, blah, blah, blah. I'll just say yes. Then yes, you're a fake fan because you're actively lying about being a fan. An additional thing that I would like to add, which I guess now I've gone through all this, I think we could use fake fan as well if someone doesn't respect the artist and their boundaries. If someone is stalking the artist and doesn't respect their privacy, then yes, you should be called a fake fan. Because I don't think you deserve the fan label if you don't respect the artist and their boundaries. At that point, it's just like the biggest red flag and you're just ruining it for everyone else who wants to be here in peace and enjoy the fandom and the artist. I feel like that's a good definition of a fake fan. That is actually usable and not based on this like hierarchical dumb thing. At the end of the day, fandom is not about tests or rules or memorizing or proving that you're more real than others. The idea of fake fan, at least in the way that it's often used, is mostly a myth, because it's not a competition. Because gatekeeping only makes fandom smaller, more toxic, and less fun. And the only way that you should be classified as a fake fan is if you're actively lying about being a fan, or if you're disrespecting the artist and their privacy. That's it. So if you ever doubted yourself or felt like you weren't a real enough fan or a good enough fan, take this as your confirmation. You're a fan. No qualifiers, no conditions, you just are. And only you get to decide if you're a good enough fan. And that's between you and yourself and not based on who you think you should be as a fan. And once you realize that it's not a hierarchy and that there is no final goal or final level or no medal, then I think the fandom becomes way more fun to be in. And with that, thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, like, comment, subscribe. It truly means the world. And if you have any video ideas, leave them down in the comments. And with that, have a nice day, have a nice week, and I'll see you again in my next video. Bye!